Hey, everybody. Welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Mr. Rob. And I'm your host, BMR. How is everybody doing today? Joining me in Studio B from the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast is, of course, my co-host, Krista Tweedy. We have a great show in store for you today. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot, Mr. Rob on YouTube. Give a thumbs up. Hit the alert bell. Leave a comment. You're going to find us all on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, KPNL Radio, wherever podcasts are found. Thank you to the lovely Selene, as we are also on digital streaming live with her today every Tuesday and Thursday and throughout the week. If you like what we have to offer, you'd like to support the channel, the Super Chat's open. Super Chat is a great way to help do what we do around here. Your support is appreciated, and thank you for that. You can check me out on my social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so on and so forth. With that being said, I'm going to go through the lineups that we put out for you guys throughout the week. And, well, it's Mondays, of course. This is Texas Front Porch. You can find Tex and Brandy on Mondays at 9 in the East. Tuesday nights is at 8 in the East is Van Buren Variety. Myself and Tex Beyond BMR 9 o'clock in the East Tuesdays. Wednesdays is the Diva Dimension on Texas Front Porch. Check that show out at 10. Thursday, right back here with Brunch with Bigfoot, Mr. Rob, and Krista from the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. Please subscribe, of course, and that's at 1 in the East. Tonight, if you need some more, well, actually not, yeah, it's on Thursdays. You have the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. They come on every Thursday night at 9. And if you need some more woo with the booze, you can check out the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast again Friday nights at 9. Saturdays on Texas Front Porch, 3 o'clock in the East, Infamous Minds with Tex and Danielle Diva. Of course, Jessica Jones, Spaced Out Radio. You can find her Saturday and Sunday, 10 in the East. Of course, she is the Cryptid Huntress, and she's got 2 shows going on throughout the week herself, so go check her out. With that being said, I'm going to jump right into it here and bring up my lovely co-host. What's happening, Krista? How are you?
I'm off work today, and it's a good day, so yeah.
It's great to be off work, isn't it?
It is. It's kind of a... Yeah. I'll work another 7 days straight because I'm off every Thursday, and right now that's the only day I'm off. So...
Well, you're off on the right day to hang out with me on an afternoon with our lovely people in chat. And I see Midnight Night Watchers, Chiro Sounds, Anthony from Unidentified S4, another great channel, Crystal McGee, Dogman UK. I know, I got to scroll down here. Donnie Cho says stuff. Great channel as well. Go check out Donnie. Paranormal Pixie. Hi, Laura. Hi, someone new. Oh, Scott Marine, always changing his handle. Now he's BH Daniel. He's using his son's phone.
I read that.
Thanks, Scott. Gary Spike Sr., always a pleasure when you come on in.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a few others. Stephen Finnegan always comes on in. Thank you. Thanks to Rats out there, Rats S. And a few others are coming in. Well, I got to tell you, Chris, so we had a great show lined up. Patriot Yank is in here. Robin Moonshadow. Now, Robin Moonshadow was scheduled to come on with us today. And I tell you what, and I feel sorry for this lady. I had her on the show maybe when I first started out, and she's into the little people, Puckwudgies, pygmies, these prototype pygmies and such.
All the stuff I'm into.
All the stuff I wanted to do today, but you know what? Hey, Barb, she called me today. She threw out her back.
That's awful.
And it's not a likely excuse. Most people don't, hey, she woke up this morning. She could barely move. She's going to her chiropractor today at 3. I didn't want to discuss her business to everybody, but hey, it's a back issue. And I got to tell you, I've had a back issue before, Chris. And I tell you what, well, good. You know what having back pain is. You cannot, you do not want to do anything, do you?
No, you can't sit, you can't stand, you can't lay down. There's no comfortable position.
There
Oh,
isn't. I've tried standing with my back against the wall. I've
oh, yeah.
tried sitting. You know what I did do? Way back in the day, I used to like lift weights like all the
Mhm.
time. So I did always have the what do you call it? The weightlifting belt that you
Yeah.
put around. Now that does give support. That I find that does help. But if you pull it or you do something awkward, it really doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. And when I had my real bad back issue, and it's been, well, it was probably 10 years ago, I went for 3 days and I couldn't move. And I actually laid down on the floor on the carpet. I couldn't
Yep.
get up. It was awful. I couldn't get up. I was like stuck there. But it was just, it's just awful, awful, awful. So my heart aches for her.
Yeah, and she will be scheduled back. She's a very nice lady. I spoke with her
Mhm.
several times. I spoke with her like a couple years ago as well, and so yeah, I'll be looking forward for that for her.
Oh, yeah, for
And I'm
sure.
just so well. But anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. And before we get started, I want to thank everybody that has purchased my book. You can find it on Amazon.
Mhm.
Bigfoot Mission Represents True Cryptid Encounters, Book One. It's so far it's still holding strong at 5 stars. And anybody that's bought it already, thank you so much. When Amazon sends you to give a review, be honest. You don't if you don't think it's worthy of 5 stars, don't, because I want honest feedback. But right now I'm 100% with the star rating. So I appreciate that.
Mhm.
And again, for those that have bought it, I am very appreciative. I thank you so much for that. And let's
Yep.
just keep book sales up. And again, when you leave a review, it does help with the analytics. Everything is analytics these days. Krista,
Oh, yeah.
on YouTube, you need the comments, you need the thumbs up. When you're selling books, you need a review.
Mhm.
4 or 5 stars. It helps. And what they do is it spurs on sales
Yeah.
for your book. Much like YouTube, it spurs on YouTube will refer you out to more people. So
Right.
yeah, these things are definitely important.
Yep. Most definitely. I agree with you.
So,
Yeah.
thank you to Barb.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, thank again, everybody. I appreciate all you guys. There's so many people for me to thank. And if you're a member of the chat community, or if you listen to the show, I do thank you guys for that. And I'm pretty excited about that. I started writing a book, Chris. I don't know if I told you this story about in my early 20s. It was about a vampire, right? Way
Hmm.
before Twilight. It was the Pacific Northwest about this vampire. It was a woman. I named her Gabriella, and she lived in the cave system of the Pacific Northwest. And this is way back in the day when our computers were just kind of like big,
Right.
ugly boxes that would
Yeah.
take up like all this room. So I had like 350 pages, and I wasn't one of these people that I just typed. I didn't really bother saving stuff or putting it back.
Hmm.
Then you had to have a disk.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm typing one night, a big electrical storm comes in, not rain, not wind, electrical. So it hit my house or hit the antenna or whatever it hit. I don't really know. So we lost power and the entire book was lost.
Oh, how far
I
into it were you?
I was 350 pages into it.
Oh,
I was getting
no.
ready. It was almost completed.
That's sickening.
And when I write something, I don't write it freestyle. Even back then, I would type everything, just type it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, I had no notes. I had no nothing. I tried an attempt to redo it. I was just so frustrated that I gave up. So I'm actually surprised that, some 20 plus years later, I put something out there. And this
Hmm.
time, everything, no, I didn't lose anything.
Well, maybe now, maybe you can go back and finish that and redo that book one day.
Yeah, well, that's always a possibility. We'll see
Hmm.
how this one goes. I'm working on book 2. And
Right.
for those of you, I see a lot of people that are fans of Robin Moonshadow. She threw out her back. She threw out her back, and she's
Hmm.
rescheduled for later in the month. So I'm sorry for fans of Robin's, but she's a fantastic lady. And I said, look, don't worry about it. She was so
Yeah.
apologetic about it. I said, hey, no worries. We'll get you back on. Krista and I can always come up with something to talk about.
Always.
And it's and here's a cool thing. You finally talked about your Bigfoot encounter, and our Bigfoot encounters, they contrast. Your
They do.
experience, I'm not going to tell your story, but yours was kind of cool. where mine really wasn't cool
Right.
at all.
Right.
So if you don't mind, Krista, unless you got anything you want to make any announcements before we get started, we can start the first half of the show with that if you like.
Yeah, I can talk about it now. Here a few weeks ago, I went to the Ozark Mountain Sasquatch conference, and part of that conference was Brandy and myself and the Nana boss. We spent a weekend at the campsite with the speakers, and then Shane Carpenter, Randy Harrington, and then the lady that put it on, Marianne Zybel. And there were several others there from the BFRO. And that's another thing we can talk about too, because, I was always anti-BFRO because I don't feel like they put everything out there, with the encounters. So I even told them, man, we bash BFRO on our show, because we have. And then, told them about what, of course, Renee Holland did to us at the Gatlinburg conference. And I got to tell you, though, I met some good people, part of the BFRO. But anyway, to fast forward, so our Bigfoot encounter, we had went to the conference all day, and that evening a storm came in, and I don't mean like a little thunderstorm. It was awful. It was an awful storm, and we thought, Shane even come over, and I believe he said, "Oh, it's going to last about 30 minutes to an hour. It's just a little rain, That's what we all expected." And no, it like knocked down our cook shack. I mean, it. Some people lost their tents, and fortunately, how we didn't, I don't know, but we didn't. But anyway, so fast forward, after the storm, everybody was trying to, figure out camp, and who got knocked out, who didn't, and after that, most people went to bed. There was 5 of us that stayed up, and we were sitting around the campfire, and there was another guy there. I don't even remember his name, but him and Randy Harrington were kind of arguing a little bit because, part of the deal there, you don't come there, you don't talk politics or religion. I get that.
Right.
And the guy kept bringing up those subjects, and Randy kept telling him, let's not talk about that. We're not talking about that. That was part of the deal. You coming? We're not talking about that. So anyway, Randy ended up getting upset, and he went to bed. So about 10 minutes later, Brandy and I, we went to bed. Brandy went to sleep in her car because of the rain. She had an air mattress on the floor in the tent. So because of the rain, she just picked up her air mattress and was going to sleep in her car. So we're sitting there. I go to bed, and Marty was in my tent, and she actually heard Randy like going off on something. And so back up a little bit. Randy's story, he thought that guy had some books that was at his tent that had gotten wet and was sitting underneath his awning. But he said he kept hearing it, and then he heard his cooler open. Or it was cooler or a tote or something. And so he made a comment he thought it was a person. Well, fast forward here a little bit longer, and I'm laying in there on my phone, and I always play my games to wind down. Playing my game, finally put my phone up, put it down, and I'm just laying there because I'm still awake from the storm, and I started hearing something walking up towards the tent, but it was walking slowly. So I'm laying there, I'm trying to figure out, okay, I know squirrels can be loud, I know. Anyway, so I'm just laying there, and as I'm listening and listening, I could hear it get closer and closer. I did not hear any breathing or anything like that. And this went on for a few minutes. And, my eyes are open because I'm just laying there. And I look over to, my head was towards the back of the tent. I was laying on a cot, and Marty's was laying in the tent too on a cot, but her head was up towards the door. Mm-hmm. So we were kind of opposite. And I look up, and I seen a shadow, something bipedal, and I seen it from like the arm here to about here. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh crap! I said more than oh crap. I will tell you that.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah. So I was like, Marty, and she didn't answer. I was like, Marty, and I whacked her real quick. Well, anyway, I was like, "Do you hear that?" And she could hear it. So I heard it like right behind my head while I'm laying there. Here's the tent wall, and I'm hearing it right back behind my head, right? And so I sat up real quick on my cot. I'm like, because that was kind of freaking me out, because you could hear it. It was just weird because so we had everything zipped up. We couldn't look out. We couldn't, it was almost like one of my senses was taken away, if that makes sense, because I had no eyes. I couldn't see, yet we could hear it. And Marty and I were talking, not loud, but not at a whisper either. So it was kind of around our camp. And then we even made the comment, oh my God, I wonder if it's looking in at Brandy. So anyway, we could hear it kind of move on. So that next morning we get up and Brandy, she's like, oh my God, you ain't gonna believe what I saw last night. I'm like, oh yes, I will. And then it just, everything started making sense. Everything started playing into play. And Shane got up and I got to tell you, he's quite the researcher, because he did not, and he even told Brandy this, he didn't take us at our word. He wanted proof,
Okay.
He wasn't going to say, yes, oh, that was the Bigfoot, he wanted the proof. And sure enough, for several hours after that, he was all over, and you could follow the tracks of where it went all throughout our camp. So it was quite the interesting night. And Brandy, like I said, she saw it, and I saw the shadow, and we heard a metal clapping. I heard a bird. There was a whistle. Different noises heard that Marty and I heard. So it was a really, really interesting night. And that honestly, part of me was, I do hear a lot of scary Bigfoot encounters, yours included.
Right.
And, and I guess when I sat up real quick, because it was right outside my tent,
Yeah.
that's what I had to think.
Now, when it was sitting outside your tent, did it cast a real big shadow, or did
Well,
it like darken your tent?
On Marty's side, it was a big shadow. Yeah, because so I didn't see the whole head of it. The shadow only went up to like here and from the shoulder. So it was big. It was pretty good size.
Yeah.
And just and after that too, when Marty was up behind me, when we could hear it behind me after I was already sitting up on the cot, she seen it, the shadow on my side, which would have been between, it went through by our tent and Brandy's car. So that's when it was, I think, over there looking in at Brandy. So whether it's seen Brandy or not, I don't know. But Brandy, covered her head all the way up. Yeah. And then when she saw it, she kind of went back in and got back underneath the covers. So
yeah, and and Brandy was saying too, because I've heard the story, of course, way before. Yeah, because I've privileged information from you guys. Didn't you say something, Brandy, during this entire thing too earlier? Heard like tapping on her vehicle, but she did not know if it was rainfall or sticks falling from the underbrush or overbrush.
Right. And you could still hear the water dripping, off the trees from the rain. So, but the impressions that Shane got, literally, if you guys haven't watched it, go back and watch this last Sunday night's episode, but you'll see a lot of the pictures and stuff. And he got the impressions where this creature, it really was behind our tent, and how it walked all the way down as far as where the Johnny on the spots were. So yeah, it was incredible. I'm telling you, that was so once in a lifetime.
So yeah, so when you see this thing, you're in the tent.
Mm-hmm.
You got the shadow of what you captured from here to down to here, or here, however it was.
Yeah.
What was going like right then and there? Because I know what was going through my mind when I actually seen something full blown. But what was going through your mind? You're like, holy cow! I think this is a Bigfoot. What was your immediate?
My immediate thought was, I hear all this scary stuff, and we were literally in the area where like the Ozark Howler. I'm thinking Dogman. And then because Dogman been known to just rip people out of their tents, and so all of those things were hitting in my mind, and then I saw it, and I'm, if it wanted to hurt us, absolutely it could have, without a doubt, without a doubt. And so I don't know, it's just kind of changed my views, that my encounter was a good one.
Yeah.
However, your encounter, so what's the difference here? What
Well, who
you know
know?
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying? Why was yours so negative?
yeah, I heard your story a couple times. We spoke about it in the past and stuff. And
Mhm,
if you look at the two different encounters, first of all, in your encounter, I know you don't have the picture, but where Krista was and the entire camping, the party, the hiking
mhm.
party, the research party, you guys were in like a huge cul-de-sac. I mean, you guys were literally surrounded by the woods, but where you were laid up at was
Mhm.
freshly cut grass or was not very tall. It was not weedy
It was
and
a little bit of like a pasture,
a pasture, correct.
in
And
the woods.
so
Yeah.
this being, this Sasquatch, he could have circled all of your tents and gotten to any of them
Mhm.
and just came out from any part of the wood line because all
Right.
your tents and vehicles were backed up to the wood line. So
Yes.
I think he had so I in this instance, I just think he was being just what's the word, inquisitive. What are
Yeah.
these people? And it
Yeah.
seems to me that my first thought process is might be kind of used to humans already, or
Mhm.
human beings, I should say.
Well, I think I do believe that particular property. I believe Shane and Randy had investigated it. They were called in because the guy was having Bigfoot activity.
Okay.
And so it hasn't been like over investigated where like you could say that, these certain Sasquatches knew them guys, however, a lot of them had been there since that previous Monday. Our encounter happened on Saturday. So I feel they were kind of watching all week, of the people coming and going and, a new tent just came in and, I think they were around all week. I really do. But because of the storm, several of us were up a lot later than what, they had been going to bed throughout the whole week. So,
Mhm. And in response to your question to me, why do you think the difference is why yours was just kind of laid back? You didn't feel
mhm.
you weren't in terror or anything. Certainly, you thought, "Wow, there's something out here," which I'm sure you felt a little strange, but you weren't
I was
scared or
creeped.
apprehensive.
I was creeped. Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly were creeped out a little bit because who
Mhm.
would? If something is any big, let's say there was a nice friendly Bigfoot and you've seen it and it's just looking at you and takes off, you're still going to be in awe or in shock because your
Yeah.
brain's not, because again, until you've seen these creatures, they're not supposed to exist for the average person.
Mhm.
Now, the people
Yeah.
watching this show, the people in chat, you and I, we know they exist. A lot of us have
Mhm.
seen them. And when I think the difference, I don't, the difference between yours and mine, that's such a great question because you guys were in your tents. You guys were
Right.
sleeping. You guys were not threatening. And he
Mm.
moved about and did his business. But at the same time, Chris, I was in a boat
Right.
on water, 90 feet from shoreline. I'm definitely not a threat. All I'm doing is minding my own business fishing. Then
Mhm.
this thing appears out of the wood line, looking at it. And again, when I first seen it, I'm like, wow, what
Yeah.
in the heck is that? And you have to remember, this was in 2018. Bigfoot was not on my. I wasn't doing the show. I wasn't a Bigfoot researcher. I wasn't into it at
Mhm.
all. Other than I remember watching Leonard Nimoy, and I remember seeing the Patterson film because growing up I did like monsters, and anytime something about Bigfoot was on TV, I would watch. Much like though I would watch anything about ghosts, UFOs,
Mhm.
aliens. To me, it was all the same platform. So when I saw mine, I was like processing this just hairy humanoid, and as
Mhm.
everybody knows, it was just creepy looking. It looked like a human being with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And it was at the time just minding his business.
Right.
But then all of a sudden it rolls its shoulders back, it drops that jaw, tightens that face, exposes its teeth, and lets out that yell, scream, and roar where I get knocked back. The girlfriend gets knocked off the boat into the water, and I
Mhm.
tell you, it was terrifying. Like we were invading his space. Now,
Yeah.
people told me, Rob, you were in his space because we are. It's like walking in somebody's house. If you walk in the woods, you're
Mhm.
walking in their home. I, I don't buy that 100% because the woods, man, human beings have been in the woods
Mhm.
since the 1500s, hunting, gathering wood, building cabins. So it's just as much a right for us as it is
Right.
now, in my
Right.
opinion.
I
People will
agree.
disagree, and that's fine. However,
Yeah.
no, we are allowed to go into the woods. We're not
Mhm.
allowed to walk upon somebody's campsite. If you were camping and I'm a human being hiking, I'm not allowed to just walk in your campsite. I might
Mhm.
stand 20 feet out. Hey, I'm hiking through,
Right.
how's it going?
Right.
Or just let people know. So so for it to act the way it did off on the shore, just looking into shore, I don't know what this thing was, what his problem was. Now I've heard the theories that maybe there was children. I've heard a story that perhaps
Mhm.
his children were close by and it was just giving us a warning. Someone says I was in his fishing area. Let me tell you something about this. Lake Mitchell, I mean Lake Cadillac is the lake, but Lake Mitchell is the actual lake it was on. People fish that every single day.
Mhm.
And I've talked to several people that have heard those same screams and howls at night. So they know there's something lurking. But I'm thinking that mine was what I do know about Bigfoot today now, since I've been doing this, is this. Bigfoot, they're socialized and they travel in families, they travel in groups or clans.
Mhm.
Now, there are occasions where there's a disgruntled Bigfoot that maybe wants to take over and be the leader. And these Bigfoot, being a socialized community, they maybe have their own voting system. And I'm just talking in general, and they
Yeah.
disbanded them. They kicked them out of the group. Then now you have a rogue Bigfoot.
Maybe.
Now they're pissed.
Mhm.
They've got no family, and
Right.
they probably have a hair up their rear end, and they just pissed off at the world. So I'm
Right.
thinking that's what happened because I do believe
That
that Bigfoot.
Yeah,
y-
that or have you ever considered maybe it was a juvenile and you were the first human it had ever seen and maybe it was scared of you too, maybe,
That's a possibility. But then again, and we can't gauge. I tell everybody it was like 9 feet tall because this thing was
Mhm.
towering
Yeah.
and it was like 4 foot wide. I've
Mhm.
never seen a That's what I've seen now. But
Mhm.
what you say about it, maybe it was a juvenile, right? Because they will say they do say this from researchers and people I spoke to on the show before. The ones that get seen, like Bigfoot crossing the road or Bigfoot that runs through your camp, typically are juveniles that are inquisitive
Mhm.
because the elders of the clan,
Right.
they're the ones that you don't really see.
Yeah.
An elder of a
Right.
Bigfoot clan is not going to cross the highway
Right.
unless he's transporting his family and
Right.
making sure it's safe. A
Right.
juvenile is more apt to just run across haphazardly or
Mhm.
haphazardly run through your camping area, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to your point, very possible. Just a big kid,
Mhm.
a big juvenile.
Right. Could have
And
been. We can speculate all day,
you can
you know.
speculate, and this is all purely speculation of something that
Mhm.
I've seen, something that you have now experienced,
Mhm.
and how I say it metamorphosized into a demon. It looked like a demon. Now, for those that don't know, I've worked with Sibylla Irwin, and we now have both composite drawings of my Bigfoot. We have the humanoid Down syndrome picture, and we also now have the demon looking picture that I have. And we'll be doing a show on that here in the next month or so. And we're
Mhm.
going to revisit that story, but I'm going to have pictures of my Bigfoot that she drew. I'm going to tell everybody listening, and you, Krista, you've kind of seen the picture.
Mhm.
You've seen the picture, right?
I have.
That's about 93 to 95% accurate. It'll never be 100%. You can't.
Sure.
It's not a photograph. It's 93 to 95% accurate what I saw. And we'll be doing a show on that. And you've seen the two pictures.
Mhm.
And I always say the second one looks like a demon. I kind of don't think that what I saw was turned into a demon. I don't think it was a demon. I think it was a flesh and blood creature with paranormal abilities. And I
Mhm.
know that's just a pat answer,
Sure.
but that's about the best way for me to explain it because it
Yeah.
totally metamorphosized. It did not. It looked like me now looking like you, totally different. And you can
Mhm.
elaborate a little bit. You saw the two photos. Did they not
Yeah.
look different?
They did look different. They did. Have you ever maybe taken into consideration, and I'm not saying that it didn't morph, but what about like the screaming? You know how like if we scream, our faces change too, or
Yes.
you know.
Well, I will tell you this because trust me, since 2018, I've been definitely looking this stuff
Mhm.
up. I one day sat in front of a mirror, okay, and I just started trying to just contort my face and really weird
Right.
looking. I mean, you can make yourself total. It's so embarrassing. I mean, if you took
Sure.
a picture of some of the faces you can make, it's quite embarrassing. And yeah, you could change your look, which number one, I agree with. And number two, when I was looking up apes and chimpanzees and stuff, the baboon is the perfect example for me. Baboon to me is still ugly as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see a baboon in the wild with its normal look, and then when it's scaring off a predator or if it's fearful, it does metamorphosize to an extent and contort its face where it's already has that taut skin, but it really gets tighter and the mouth gets bigger, it
Mm-hmm.
exposes all its teeth, and it looks nothing like what it looked like prior. And even if you look at certain fish and other mammals that can change, they're not supernatural, they're not demons, they're not paranormal. It's just their defense mechanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so that's why I'm thinking more or less now, Rob, you didn't see a demon, but you saw something not
What
natural.
about, have you taken into consideration that maybe it wasn't a Bigfoot, but maybe like on the lines of a Gugway?
People have told me that because the teeth on this thing are more like
Mhm.
fangs. They're more like oversized dog teeth, right? Kind
Right.
of fangish, if you remember a
Right.
picture. But still the thing that really drives me nuts is it really that first image, Krista, it looked like a crazy looking human, did it not?
Right. I
That
agree.
second, the
Mhm.
second look to you didn't look human at all, did it?
No, it's
Did it look
pretty
more
scary.
of a yeah?
Looks pretty
So,
scary.
and that's the thing still to this day that I just can't get over. And of course, I
Sure.
can't get over that. Is it coincidence? I'm not a big coincidence guy that we got struck with.
Mhm.
People say infrasound. Well, that was a pretty damn infrasound. Because still, I think that had something to do with when Cindy passed away a month later. Because I
Mhm.
think that her insides just got jungled up. And of
Yeah.
course, those records I can't get into.
Right.
But do I think it was an actual demon? I'm I'm
Mhm.
saying no.
Yeah.
You know, and even
Yeah.
and I always freely tell everybody this. Am I 100% convinced it was Bigfoot? No. It was something that I think it was a cryptid.
Mhm.
You
I agree.
mentioned Gugway, and Gugways do exist.
Mhm.
They are what they call the face eaters. But then I'm thinking, Cadillac, there's like 4 or 5 Bigfoot reports Cadillac, Michigan is in Wexford County. They've
Yeah.
got way more dogman reports than Bigfoot. But did not look like no wolf or dog.
Right. Right.
So it's still a mystery to me, one
Mhm.
that I'll probably never
Nope.
solve,
Probably not.
but that's okay. I'm not
Yeah.
here to prove anything.
Yeah.
I'm here to
Because
talk
you
with
know.
people. Yeah, I
Mhm.
know. I know there's something out there.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
do believe that the hundreds of people now I've spoken to over the last 2 years plus 5 years starting this, there's all sorts of things out
Mhm.
there that we have
Yeah.
no idea. No
Absolutely.
idea.
Absolutely. They said, people ask Brandy, what if she would have turned her car on or, shined her lights and stuff. I think it would have just left, I mean, and even if we would have tried to get up and unzip our tent a little bit to look outside, I think we would have scared it off. So, I know next time to leave a little crack in my tent windows. That I did learn.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
maybe not even scare it off. I think maybe because I know they're not scared. I think maybe even They just don't want to be seen. They just
Right.
want to disappear, you know?
Right.
Well, I
Right.
guess scared off. Yeah, I guess you said it right. But
Yeah.
yeah, they just don't want to be, you know.
Right.
And you hear about stories about this cloaking. You know, I still
Mhm.
don't know if that's a paranormal thing or if it's just something
Yeah.
that they can do, right?
All I know is like you can talk about what happened with you, and I can talk about what happened with me, and it doesn't make either one of them right or wrong. It's just
Yeah.
what our encounter was. For me, there was nothing woo about my encounter. It was definitely something flesh and blood and bipedal, and you could hear it. We have the tracks to prove it. So I feel like that was my encounter. But your encounter and other people's encounters are different. Where they do have a little weirdness to them. It doesn't make anything right or wrong. It's just our encounter of what happened.
Yeah, I don't thank you so much, No, for the super
Yes, thank you.
chat.
No,
I appreciate that. I think that oh no, how can you call someone's encounter wrong? And
right.
Dogman UK was saying cloaking does exist. Oh yeah, I know cloaking does exist. I've had many stories and many people on the show that have seen Bigfoot literally dissipate or walk
Hmm.
out of or manifest out of a tree stump or walk out of a tree, which
Hmm.
I do believe that trees a little different topic here, but I do believe that trees are actual portals. Trees are
Hmm.
living things. I think there's something, especially deep in the forest. Maybe see if you think the way I do, Krista.
Hmm.
I think that trees and Mother Nature in general is mysterious, and
Hmm.
I
I do
believe in
too.
I do believe in the woo. I do.
Hmm.
Maybe what I
Hmm.
saw wasn't, but I think Bigfoot, yeah, they can manifest. I mean, it's too again when you talk about other people's encounters, too many people have told me they've seen Bigfoot come out of a tree,
Yeah.
manifest from a stump, and disappear when they go to show their buddy, or you get that picture, right?
Right.
And you
Right.
see it through the lens, you got a picture, then all of a sudden it's a so-called blob squatch. Or in some instances there's nothing there.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you, Barb.
Barb.
Thank you. No, you talked about the forest being weird, and I'll tell you a story, and it's at the end of the month. So my best friend from high school, I had dinner with her here a couple months ago, and she knows about the podcast and the shows, and she and I growing up. Thank you, Susie. Um, do you see that one?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
typing out something to Barb. Thank you, Susie. Susie B. Speaking of Susie B, don't interrupt. This here, my pal, Susie B. I was supposed to meet Susie in Las Vegas, but I had knee surgery. So she was going to give me
Mhm.
my rock. She asked me one day what my favorite animal was. Well, my favorite animal is a lion. So this is her artist. This is a rock. She painted this. And I guess she's got Rob and an arrow. It's a good luck piece. Whenever
Yeah.
I go out looking for stuff, I put this in my pocket for good luck. Once again, Susie B, fantastic artist. Go check her out. I don't know if she sells them, but I'm giving you a little plug, Susie. I love it. Thank you.
Mhm. If not, maybe you should, Susie. You should start selling
Yeah,
some.
she's very talented. Susie B is very
Yeah.
talented. So thank
Yeah,
you.
she did a great job. But as far as the forest being weird, so my friend and I were having dinner, and like I said, she knows that I do the shows and stuff, and as teenagers, she and I we dabbled in on the dark side, the Ouija boards and that kind of stuff. But that's another whole subject. She told me, she said, I've never told anybody this story. She said, but I feel like I can tell it to you. And this was about 20 years ago. She was deer hunting with her husband and her father-in-law at the time, and she was at her own area deer hunting, and they were on theirs. And she said it was right before dark. She watched these creatures just appear out of a tree. And she said that it was like a possum porcupine looking thing that came out on all fours. Thank you, Lily Pond.
Thank
Anyway,
you, Lily Pond.
that came out on all fours. And she said there was like 5 to 8 of them. And then they got bipedal and walked off. And I'm like, I have no idea what that was. And so we were looking and looking and looking. Well, come to find out, I was sending her all these different things of different trolls and things like this. Everything was a no until I sent her a Puckwudgie. And she's like, that was it. So, like they just appeared out of a tree. She said she sat up in her tree stand and watched it. So how does that happen?
Again, how does that happen? And
Right. That's
again,
what I'm
that
saying. The forest,
the forest is mysterious. I have more respect for the forest now. I tell you, it's not that I
Yep.
ever disrespected the forest because I've always found it to be enchanting or mysterious. Um,
Yeah.
Now, am I one of those guys that's seen this creature that I'll call it? Am I a person that will never go back in the woods because of it? Well, you're reluctant. Am I going to go back to that same area? Probably not. Only because I don't want that memory. I don't want to
Mhm.
I mean, I tell my encounter story quite often,
Right.
and I relive it every time I tell it. And and it's not that it was a scary encounter. It's just that I lost somebody in my life, and I'm always
Mhm.
that's something that will never leave me, right?
Sure.
I guess,
Yeah.
like time heals all wounds. I get it. It's been 5 years.
Mhm.
I can freely talk about it. There were the first year, Chris, to talk about my story, I would just tear up,
Right.
on
Right.
a live show. And today I'm past that today.
Mhm.
She's in a good place, but again, you talk about this materialization. You know how many stories I've
Mhm.
done and people we've had on the show and talked with? There's always something about mysterious in the woods. It's almost like sometimes the woods can be your friend or your enemy. They
Right.
can guide you to safety, or they
Mhm.
can guide you to something not
Right.
as pleasant. And I think that's
Right.
because the forest is filled with those elementals,
Yep.
good or bad,
Yeah.
that they there's certain areas, particularly if you're on the outside of a cemetery
Mhm.
and you get that creepy vibe. You know what I'm talking
Oh,
about,
yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
And something tells you, your instinct tells you to best turn around. And at the same time, if you're in an area that's more pleasant, it tells you, it kind of eggs you to continue further.
Mhm.
And then if you do, you end up finding something really cool looking.
Yeah.
But if you go against your instinct because your instincts is telling you one thing, but you continue on, you might find something that's not
Right.
pleasurable.
Right. You just never know. And like I said, my friend said she was petrified and she stayed in her tree stand. It was after dark and she knew she was supposed to go down and meet her husband and father-in-law. And she didn't. They had to come and get her. She was petrified to get down. Well, when reading up on Puckwudgies, it's probably a good thing she didn't because they're not so nice,
No,
and it's, I guess she's lucky. She said she just sat there real still and just scared. And she's probably fortunate it didn't see her. They didn't see her.
well, probably fortunate. I will tell this for everybody just joining us today. Robin Moonshadow was supposed to be on. She called me this morning apologizing. I told her it's fine. She threw out her back. She's in a lot of pain, so she will be coming back on. For those of you
Mhm.
that are fans of Robin Moonshadow, she will be back. But I can tell you this about the Puckwudgie, because she was talking about Puckwudgies, little people, and
Mhm.
proto pygmies. So she'll be on another several weeks, I guess. I haven't got back with her on that. But
Yeah.
the Puckwudgie, let me tell you something, and I'm just being completely transparent on this. I would much rather have Bigfoot, even though my encounter sucked. I would much rather have a couple Bigfoot running through my camp than a band of Puckwudgies, because Puckwudgies do have this intention to hurt
Mhm.
humans, hurt humans, and they are ugly looking trolls. I've seen
Mhm.
pictures with their backs are like porcupine. They have spikes on their back
She
like a
said it was
porcupine.
between what she saw was between a possum and a porcupine looking thing, is how she described it. And it
Yep,
came out
and
on all fours, but when they walked off, they were on two legs.
yeah, they can walk on two legs. They can get
Mhm.
on four legs, and they can scurry about. But they stand up, and they look like a deformed little troll. And
Mhm.
those spikes on their back ain't no joke. And
Mhm.
they will literally terrorize you, and they will bite you. They will,
Yeah.
if you have a young child or animal around, forget it. They will. Well, I won't
Mhm.
say what they'll do, but it's not good.
Yeah. 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 So we actually we have I've conned her into coming on our show. I think it's the last Friday of October, and we're going to talk about it. Because she never told anybody about it because everybody, like she said, what does she tell people? It was a porcupine possum looking thing that you know. And I get it. I get where she's coming from. And that's, again, why we do this, because it's people like that that can tell their stories and we believe them,
No, I like I
Hmm.
said, I don't judge people's stories. I do stories every week. I'll do some that are really like, I've had a couple stories I haven't, I'll admit. I believe everybody's story, but I've had a couple that were just, I had a story about a guy who was telling me that his kid was playing with building blocks and Legos, and it turned into this creature and started walking around, out of blocks. Now, first of all, I didn't report on that because it was just too short of a
Hmm.
story. But then again, as far fetched as that sounds, Krista, something evil or paranormal could do that, right? Just like we hear about, which I hate. Two things that scare me: dolls and
Hmm.
clowns. Dolls and clowns, don't like them. But you hear so many stories about these clowns being taken over by a spirit, whether good or bad.
Right.
And then why would these blocks not form like a figure and start walking around? I mean,
Yeah.
sounds Hollywood, right? But
Yeah.
I can't say that did not happen. I probably would have done the story, but it was only 2 minutes long.
Yeah. I,
I mean,
mhm.
I don't know.
There's some crazy stuff out there, seriously, like, that you would never think. Do we have time real quick? Can you tell about the walking stick,
Yeah,
that
we got
story?
47. Yeah, you want okay, the walking stick. Yeah, I saw a stick figure.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, this is such a long story. We'll have time, but there's history behind where I was at. It's called Dead Man's Curve. It's also known as Dead Man's Bridge, where years ago in the 60s, before I was born, early 60s, this high school couple got killed at this bridge. One
Hmm.
was beheaded, and apparently her headed ghost haunts this place. And this place, you guys, is a mile from me. So I kind of go down there. In fact, me and my friends seen many years ago what we thought was the headless woman that was killed. But so I'm just giving you some background. And this is a
Yeah.
big meadow. It's got a big creek that runs through it, and there's on either side of the creek is a wood line, maybe 20, 30 feet, deep. So it's
Hmm.
plush. So we're out in a little meadow area, and I'm looking into the grass, and I see this stick pop up, and it's maybe 18 inches tall. But it was a stick, you guys,
Hmm.
and it was not anything that out of the ordinary. It was a hot day, it's the summer, and you know how sticks, they dry up, they pop up. So it
Sure.
popped up, and me and my buddy are looking at it like no big nothing. I didn't even think anything. But we're still gazing in the area, not because the stick popped up, because we're looking at something else in the distance. Whatever it was, it might have been the freeway. I don't know. But then all of a sudden, I gazed back at this stick, and it got up. It got about 6 inches higher. And as I swear, you guys, it had two legs and it had two arms, and it starts running from the meadow toward the creek. And it reminded me the way his arms and legs move. It reminded me of the Peanuts, the Planter Peanuts guy. That's the
Hmm.
way his arms. It was the arms and the legs all were mechanical, and it ran. So I, not scared of this stick, it did. I
Right.
run. I'm running after it. See what is this thing? But it turned from that stick, and it had like features, and it was just running, and I'm getting closer to it, and it scurries down the creek, and as soon as it hits the water,
Hmm.
and it immediately turned back into just a normal stick that you would see every day, and it just floated down the creek. So I try to run along the creek, trying to find it and grab it or whatever, but it got too narrow, too broad, and then it blended in with all the other sticks.
Yeah.
And I heard stories about stick men before, so yeah, that
Hmm.
I seen that. That was in the middle of the day.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, again, the forest is full of things that you just can't fathom, you know?
No, you can't because and and, and today I love the forest more today than I did
Hmm.
when I was like 20. Yeah, I had something that was crazy, but I was on the water. I'm done and over that. I'm not scared to go to the woods. I love the woods, but I
Hmm.
respect it more today. I'm more appreciative of the woods today.
Absolutely.
I will go camping anytime you ask me. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be scared. Plus, I'll be looking for something.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always
Most
gonna be looking
definitely.
up. And
Always.
boy, with that being said, we're coming up on our little break. We got a 5-minute
Hmm.
break. Thanks for everybody for coming on in. I do appreciate it. So does Krista. We're gonna take
Hmm.
our little 5-minute break for our advertising, and we'll be back. It's Rob and Krista brunch with Bigfoot Rob.
4 minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
And we're back. Hey, Krista. That was a
Hey,
great first hour. I've got to
I'm
thank, before we get rolling on, I got to thank No, Barb Hartman, Susie B, and the lovely Lily Pond for your awesome super chats
yeah,
today. That's a great way to help support what we all do around here. I do greatly appreciate that. As us, Krista, the rest of the team, thank you
yep.
for that. Don't forget, everybody, my book, Bigfoot Mr. Rob Presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book One. You can find that on Amazon. The link's in my my YouTube page and in this video. For those that have bought it, thank you ever so much. When Amazon sends you the review, give it an honest review. It helps it out, helps sales, and I do appreciate and thank all of you
Yeah.
for buying it. And also, Mondays is Texas Front Porch at 9 in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety, 8 in the East. Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. That's on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, the Diva Dimension on Texas Front Porch. That's at 10 in the East. Thursday, right back here with me and Krista, brunch with Bigfoot Mr. Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. Thursday night, tonight, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Please subscribe. If you need some more woo with the booze, Friday is the Blondes and the Booze and the Woo. Friday night at 9. Text Saturday, 3 in the East. Infamous Minds with Miss Diva. If you're into true crime, go check him on out. Jessica Jones, Space Out Radio, 10 o'clock Saturday and Sunday. She, of course, is the Cryptid Huntress. And you can catch her twice during the week on her channel. Go check her out. And, we were just talking about the elementals of the woods. And
Mhm.
again, we were talking about our respect in the woods. And everyone knows, like on Saturdays, I put out cryptid encounters from people that send in emails and they send in stories that I put out, as everyone knows by now, a video every
Mhm.
Saturday. I'm also going to be adding, because Halloween is fast approaching, and I've got some cool Halloween stories that I'll probably do that. I'll probably add that in as well, just for the month of October. And speaking of the elementals, here's a story. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but it reminds me of just what we were talking about. It's about this group of campers. They were out in the woods, and I think this was in Kentucky. And again, I think the trees are mysterious. Everything about the woods is mysterious, especially now, right? Since I've had
Well,
encounters, and Krista yourself,
absolutely.
they
And
look at
you said it's in Kentucky, and Kentucky's just weird anyway. There's a lot of weirdness in that state.
yeah, yeah. Well, doesn't our buddy Barton's got a book about weird and strange Kentucky, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah,
Yep.
so I got to get that one. That's probably fascinating.
Mhm.
But still, they were looking at they were walking through the forest, and they came to this part of the woods, Krista, that a lot of the trees were really old and ancient looking and very
Mhm.
pretty. But they came across this one particular tree that actually looked like it was a carved out face. Not that a human being took a knife or an axe and carved it out, but it looked like a face. Kind of the guy says in the story, looked like kind of like a warlock looking. It was like, and he says this was a big oak tree. It was like 5 foot round in width, and it was very tall and what have you. I don't know what type of trees they have in Kentucky, but I'm sure they got all sorts of trees that are
Mhm.
of all shapes and sizes. And they're looking at this, and they took a picture of it, and then about 5 minutes later, they wanted to go back. So they took it with their phone. They wanted to go back and look at it on their phone. And Krista, when they looked at their phone, the picture of the tree, expecting to see this image of this like warlock, it was not. It didn't show in their phone.
Believe that.
Much like if you take a picture of something, it doesn't show up, whether it's a Bigfoot, a cryptid, a
Absolutely.
ghost, and they don't appear. So they
Mhm.
thought so they were getting a little spooked out by this. So
Mhm.
they continue on. Another 10, 12 yards, feet, whatever it is. Again, I don't quite remember. I'm going by memory. They come across another tree with another warlock looking figure embedded in this big, huge tree. And now they're a little bit, oh my Lord. And then all of a sudden, they're looking at this. They go to take another picture. And when the guy has his phone looking at it, he can see the impression, but through his phone, the eyes opened.
Holy smokes.
He
That's
took
creepy.
he took the picture, Now, he's not, as you're expecting on the first picture, he did not expect to see the first
Mm-hmm.
one. He didn't capture the face. It was just a tree with nothing there. The second photo of the second in the different tree where you saw the eyes open in the phone, the
Mm-hmm.
face, the face again, like the first picture, the face not there. But you know what was left behind in the image?
What's
Two
up?
yellow shaped eyes in the tree.
That's creepy. That's pretty creepy.
So you and I tell you, there are things out there that there's
Mm-hmm.
so much out there, especially if you're into exploration, if you're into these things like we
Yeah.
all are. There's so
Yeah.
many, and I think it takes a person to have an encounter to really be more
Mm-hmm.
cognizant when they're looking around. I look
Yeah.
up, I look to my left, my right. You hear
Mm-hmm.
so many stories about Bigfoot. You walk right past the Bigfoot, a
Yeah.
foot away, and don't see it because
Yeah.
we're not looking for these things.
Right. Right. You know, when you were talking about, their phone didn't pick it up, there was a time, I don't remember if it was in March or May, which trip to the land between the lakes it was, but we walked, and it was probably midnight, 1 o'clock. We walked to the alleged kill site. And I thought, well, if people were killed here, I'm going to run an EVP session. And I was asking questions about, did dogmen kill you? Did, those kind of questions.
Yeah.
And wasn't only myself running an EVP session, but another gal that was there, a friend of ours, she also had hers going. She just wasn't asking questions. So we had two of them going. And so we went on doing our thing. And we did have like something like follow us out of the woods. And I mean, it was quite a creepy night. And so the next day I went to listen to the recording. I had nothing. Absolutely nothing was on my recorder. So Michelle, I said something to her. I was like, I didn't get nothing. I mean, there was nothing, not even my own voice. She went and got hers. Same thing. Both of our recorders were wiped clean. Go figure. How's that possible? Two of them. I could see where maybe I didn't push the right button or something, but both of us. So there's a lot of weirdness in our forest.
There is, and there's
Mhm.
another quick brief story since we're on the subject, and this all resonates because I did a story in the book actually about okay, there's this man and he's in a meadow and he's looking into the forest, into the tree line, I should say, and he sees a bunch of deer, s- just grazing in the woods, in
Mhm.
the wood line, in the meadow,
Yeah.
and then he sees something emerge from the wood line bipedally, but it says it's kind of transparent,
Mhm.
and he sees the one deer is a great this object, this being, this humanoid, whatever it was. This deer is grabbed around its neck and lifted up, and he could see the deer lift. And now the guy tells me this entire time he's filming the tree line. He sees this through the lens of his camera, and he
Mhm.
sees this being lifting this deer up. And then, of course, he stops filming. Now he wants to look with his own two eyes. Now he looks. The deer have already dispersed, and whatever this was disappeared into the woods along with that deer.
Hmm.
So when he goes back to the video on he had I think like a video camera, not a phone. So he went back to replay this just to look at this impossibility, right? So he says, Rob, when he went back to look, the only image that was captured was the deer, which was kind of blurry, suspended from the ground, but that other image of that being picking it up was nowhere to be found.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
and you talk about EMF, right? I think that these things of the forest, they can, when you talk about electronics and your batteries being drained, oh, I
Mhm.
believe all that stuff. I
Oh
believe
yeah.
I think these things have so much energy that anything that you have with you that's battery operated, it
Mhm.
just drains it right out of it.
It does. Like I started out with the ghost side of things, and oh yeah, you never go to a ghost hunt, be it a public event or private case without extra batteries, because sure enough, you'll probably have to change them at some point during the night.
Oh
True
yeah.
story. Hmm.
No, and again, but again, what I love about the field that we're all into here, you, me, everybody else, people, that are
Hmm.
watching, that's just a common thing. That's why
Yeah.
data is so important. There's hundreds of people I spoke to, battery died, phone would
Hmm.
flicker, right?
Yeah.
And I'm done talking about the blob squatch. We know that occurs almost in every single picture. But
Hmm.
capturing these images that you see, you take it, and it's not there. I remember telling you the story. This is about Eloise it's in Westland, Michigan. Now it's open as a tourist destination, but it was
Hmm.
an insane asylum, which they operated very. Their operation was it wasn't up to the health code, right? It
Hmm.
was if you went there, you had serious problems, and they didn't treat these people well. And this was
Right.
way back in the 1940s, 1930s.
Unfortunately, that was common back then.
If you were considered, if you had mental illness, you were unfortunately considered maybe a freak. And I have
Hmm.
respect for families that have people with mental illness, not to pose any fun at
Absolutely.
that. But so this is not too far from where I live, and a couple people I know, they were back before a ghost hunter was even a coin. Eloise was condemned. Now today, as I mentioned today, it's a beautiful building and they have tours now. It's all commercialized. It's not what it was. We went when they tore it down and they leveled it. And there were these, we went and it was fenced in, Chris. I mean, it said danger, do
Hmm.
not enter. So we,
Sure.
of course, hopped the fence, found a way in and went into these tunnels and found all these tunnels that led to where you could tell were operating rooms. They had gurneys in there. They had all this old equipment. I mean, when they leveled this thing, they didn't take nothing out. They just smashed it down.
Hmm.
Now, you mentioned about battery operated phones. This is back in the day where they had, remember those Kodak cameras where you would, they were the disposables. You take your
Right.
pictures and then you take the film when they had a
Yep.
Kodak place at every corner. So we're in this one room. Well, I was in the room, but I wasn't taking pictures. This is the very first time I went with these. There was two girls and a guy.
Hmm.
Very first time I ever went, and it was me and my buddy, and we went with the girls because they were doing this like all the time. They always saw weird stuff in Eloise, and we're like, "Have your fun. We're not interested." So finally, they drug us out to this place. So they're taking pictures, and I did feel a sense of I didn't feel good about going to this place, even from getting in the car and the car ride over. I did not feel
Sure.
good. And when we get there, I feel worse that we're hopping the fence, and I feel worse that we're now found a way into these tunnels. Because number one, I thought this building might collapse on us for just pure safety reasons. But the
Right.
fact that this place was like allegedly haunted, so they're taking these pictures, and again, didn't get the sense of anything. We thought we seen what might have been shadows, but I thought it was more my imagination. So my friend takes a picture of this gurney. So it always takes a day or two to get your film developed. And when we get this picture back, one of these pictures, every picture there was really nothing. One picture of the gurney. There was a picture. There was she took several pictures. One was this shadowy looking figure on the gurney. And then in another frame of the photo, this thing got off of the gurney and was walking toward the person taking the picture, and had the shape of a human. The
Wow.
shape of a human. You couldn't tell if it
Right.
was a man or woman, but it had a hominid again
Right.
of a person. I tell you what, that's you know, that would have been one for the ghost stories, for these ghost
Oh yeah.
shows.
Most definitely. I got to tell you what happened to me the other night.
Oh, something
So
current. Excellent. Let's go.
yeah, actually, I was actually telling my husband about it the other night because I asked him. I said, "Have you ever seen anything or felt anything weird in our house?" And he's like, "No, not really." He believes in ghosts, but it's not that they're around all the time. But anyway, so he goes to his son's a lot and stays. That's where I keep my horses, so he goes over there. Anyway, he was gone, and it was late. I laid down in bed. I turned the TV on, and This was Sunday night, actually, because Small Town Monsters comes out with their new deal on Sundays. So I just turned it on, and I saw a blacker than black shadow of a man like walk in my room and then just disappeared. And
this was just recently?
This past Sunday. Yeah. And I have my big dog is laying at the end of my bed. And then my medium-sized dog, she was also in the room. Neither dog flinched. And I'm laying there and I'm looking and I'm like, hello, so nothing. But that was weird. That was just weird. I haven't had that. I haven't done any ghost hunts in a long time, where I brought something home, or that was just weird.
So it was this darker than dark shadow.
Yeah, and it was definitely a man.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, wasn't that you hear the stories
in my doorway and just disappeared? That's all it did.
Walked in your doorway, the hallway,
to my bedroom. Yep, from my hallway into my bedroom and disappeared.
Yes,
I can't describe
it. Well, no, that would freak me out. I'm sorry.
I slept just fine. It didn't freak me out, but I'm like, what the, hello?
I don't know, man.
So that was just kind of weird.
No. Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you then too. Then, yeah, and you haven't had any experiences in a while, or been on any investigations in a while, correct?
Nope.
Do you think? But you've been doing this. You've been an investigator in the paranormal.
Many years.
Cryptid aside for many years. And I always ask people this. I'm sure I've asked you, but for everybody listening, do you think that if you are in paranormal research, hunting ghosts, spirits, and such, that you, since I know you have an open mind, and obviously you have to be in the field, do you find that you do see more spiritual-like or ghost-like activity? And if you didn't do it, you wouldn't really see much? Or you think certain people just have the gift or the ability and some don't?
I think, a lot of people's minds are more open than others, so they might see more, than others. However, I have a friend, Erin, who was my friend Erin Smith. She was a non-believer in ghosts. And I had her come to an event with us at the Ray County Museum. She's like, this is full of crap. We're all sitting in this hallway. And she's like, yeah, okay, right. And I don't remember what happened, but it was quite an encounter. And now she's a believer, but her mind was closed at that time. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but it was just, it was just weird,
I don't think it does. And I'll only tell you this, because people always ask me, hey, Rob, after you've had your dog man, Bigfoot encounter, do you see a lot more things? But my answer is yes. But then again, I always have to reflect back and say, however, though.
Right. You've had a lot of weirdness.
I've had weirdness. Yeah. I've seen weirdness ever since like the age of 5.
Right.
Throughout my life.
Right.
I mean, I've had one Bigfoot or cryptid encounter.
Yeah.
I've had 10, 12 ghost encounters. And I have seen a UFO as well.
Now, I do believe that, maybe so, because, you and I have talked about this. I feel like you have some sort of abilities, and maybe because of that, you see things more often. That could be it.
It could be. I mean, it's just, again, maybe that's the reason why I saw the Bigfoot.
Yeah, could be.
The difference between the Bigfoot and the ghostly things is like different, because the ghostly things were paranormal. They were spirits, they were ghosts, whatever they were. Lost souls, trapped souls, people that are trying to get over to the other side or whatever. But what I saw on Cadillac was a flesh and blood creature, right? That I thought maybe was a demon. But after 5 years of thoroughly studying this subject, I'm thinking it was a flesh and blood cryptid of some sort. Whether it was Bigfoot, Gugway,
something.
Or maybe even a deformed Bigfoot of some sort. It was something. It was definitely something. But I know that I could have shot it. It probably would have bled, at least from the onset. I mean, he had this beautiful reddish brown coat of hair. I mean, it was a creature of the forest, not a bear. Definitely not a bear, because no bear in Cadillac.
And that brings me to another subject we can maybe talk briefly on: the different coloring. Because yours, you said was kind of a reddish color, where what Brandy saw, she said it was black.
Yeah.
Maybe the different areas have to do with their coloring, or is it like us? Some people have blonde hair, some people have brown hair,
Well, yeah, mine was a reddish brown with a little bit of black, but more prevalent was this reddish brown. And it was a beautiful. I tell you what, it was like a red and a rusty brown or a rusty
Mhm.
red. I'll tell you something. It was pretty. The hair was very pretty.
Right.
I've heard them being black,
Hmm.
just brown, just gray,
Right.
multiple shades. I've even heard, MK Davis has a video. He's got some cool stuff on his channel. He's got an albino colored one or white colored Bigfoot.
Hmm. So is it, once again, is it like the areas, or is
Yeah.
it genetics like it is for us?
Again, yeah,
I don't know.
I think if you look at what I always try to do is I break it down like this. There's not one person that looks the same. There's white people, black
Sure.
people, Chinese, Japanese,
Yeah.
what all the different cultures. I think Bigfoot's got to be a different, maybe not cultures, but I think there's different. Well, yeah, I mean, different. What am I looking for here? Different,
Well, like
yeah,
just genetics, you
different
get,
genetics. Yeah,
these two parents produce this in a child, and these two produce this, So I guess in the Bigfoot world, maybe it holds true
you
also.
know. And again, if you reflect back to when I have Sibylla on, 'cause I did a show, and she had like 8 or 9 of her renditions from people
Mhm.
that she did work for. And not all Bigfoot look the same, right? They all look different. The pictures
Right?
I've seen, they all look different. They
Hmm.
take on different shapes, different forms, different sizes, different hair
Yeah.
coloring. Hey, and like mine had this long, shaggy hair. Where you hear a lot about them, they have hair, but not quite as long, not quite as shaggy.
Yeah.
And then you get the people that tell you about the pungent aroma that
Hmm.
sometimes they admit. I was
Right.
90 feet away. I didn't smell anything. But then you have
Yeah.
some people, they didn't smell anything.
Well, there was, like I said, I lost my sense of smell 20 years ago from horseback riding accident, but there was other people around that, was awake hearing this also, besides Marty and I, and nobody said anything about smelling anything. So maybe they're like us, maybe, they get in a creek and rinse off too. Who
Yeah.
knows, So maybe
Yeah.
that's some don't,
Yeah.
or
Brown
maybe
dwarf,
pheromones or something,
something, and Brown dwarf says if it, I didn't see I'm not reading all the chat, but he talks about if it is a human hybrid. Well, again, again, I think that's a human hybrid. Really, I think that's plausible. Robin McCrae believes they're an ancient human hybrid. She's been on the show a couple times.
Mhm.
Thinks they're an ancient people. And
Mhm.
I could go with that because what I saw looked like a person. It did.
Yeah, yeah.
Then it metamorphosed again into something that you would see Halloween night on a scary movie.
Mhm.
Because the
I
thing I
know.
saw originally wasn't scary, it was just creepy.
Yeah. Well, I know. I think it's this Tuesday night. I believe you have Randy Harrington as your guest, and on Beyond BMR,
Yeah.
and he's got some incredible encounters, and he's talked about like where he believes like they discipline their young, the whole 9 yards, and I'll let him talk
Yeah.
about this
Well,
on your show, but
yeah.
yeah, so like as far as the human qualities, maybe so.
Yeah. Well, I do believe this. I believe they're a socialized
Hmm.
species. And I hate to use the word species because I will say this. There's something human about them.
Hmm.
Now
Yeah.
Bart will say no, they're the inhumanoids, and I get that, and I
Hmm.
believe they are inhumanoids. But
Hmm.
with the Bigfoot thing, I think it is I think there's some human in there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's our genes, but we all refer back to that DNA study.
Hmm.
Some part
Yeah.
human and part something unknown, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
not getting into complexities of that, but basically that's what we've all
Yeah.
read and heard to my understanding.
Right.
So
Absolutely. I don't know. I just think there is a lot of humanistic qualities. I believe that night you know, whatever it wasn't stupid, because, you know, I had my phone down for a little while before I started hearing it. So it was like it was watching. So when I told you earlier that Randy had yelled at something, they actually found where it had been over there at Randy's tent that night. So it was actually, you know, the Bigfoot he was yelling at, thinking it was this person. And then they think it went back behind Shane's tent and then come around. There was a hay bale sitting there. So what I heard was like, you know, if you come into a strange place, you're going to be kind of like cautious, and same thing, same exact thing. I think they're very smart. I think this creature was very smart.
Oh yeah. Well, I will say this. I think they are smart. I think any of the cryptids are smart.
Mm-hmm.
You
Oh
know,
yeah, I agree. Dogman, all of it. Yes.
I mean, you know, even with Dogman, you get these stories. They're smart in the sense that they want to scare the hell out of you. Because there's
Yeah.
not one Dogman report I've ever gotten, or even anything that I have in the book,
Mm-hmm.
where they were nice to you. I've got plenty of our stories that I've done or read
Mm-hmm.
or wrote or whatever, where they just want to be left alone and not they didn't want to bother you. They were
Mm-hmm.
not to scare you.
Yeah,
Inquisitive, very inquisitive,
absolutely.
but at the same time, they want to see us from a distance. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Duke Sullivan, you know, from World Bigfoot Radio says that we're like their entertainment, he thinks.
Yeah,
And Duke
could
was
be.
telling me stories where I could hear them laughing, you know, because they would
Mm-hmm.
throw a rock in the camp or make some strange sound, and how the humans would run around frantically. Then he could literally hear them bellowing and laughing in the background,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Well, and just like, you know, still on with the humanistic characteristics, like the Sierra Sounds, Ron Moorhead, that's some sort of language, you know. We have a language, you know what I'm saying?
Oh
So
yeah.
they're communicating, you know, I believe in that Sierra Sounds.
If
Absolutely,
you
they're
yeah,
communicating.
I had Ron Moorhead on like last year,
Mhm.
maybe 2 years ago, and we played the Sierra Sounds, and if you and we broke it down and slowed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And in fact, the guy too, I forgot his name, he was on Linda Eastburn's channel. The guy who was, his name's Scott, his name is, he worked for the Navy and,
Mhm.
for he could break down voices and he could break down language, and you could distinctly hear, at least on the show I did, two two separate Sasquatches communicating back and forth. And we
Mhm.
figured out that one seemed to be a male, one seemed to be a female. It's funny because it seemed like they were bitching at each other about something. Just like
Yeah.
a husband and wife.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So so that was an interesting show. And breaking down that sound is very it's pretty cool if anyone hasn't seen it. Look up
Mhm.
like I'm sorry, I forgot the guy's name, but he was the guy that was with Ron way back when,
Back in the day.
listening
Mhm.
when they were doing these recordings.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But I
crazy out there, I'm telling you.
and I would tell you this, when I got roared and screamed at, it was something like, "Get the F out." And I gotta tell you, Tex has, you know who, well, you kind of know. Senior Spikes, he was in here, Mr. Gary
Mhm.
Senior. Well, Gary Junior has a recording of something, and this is like 2 or 3 years ago. I was with Tex, and
Mhm.
we were on StreamYard, and then Gary Junior says, "Hey, Rob, I'm gonna play something for you." 'Cause I told him my story, I explained to him the sound that I heard, and he
Mhm.
played this sound, this yell, screech, this roar, and when I heard it, I if I was standing, I would have fell to my knees because it sounded pretty close to the thing I saw.
Yeah.
And Gary does not know what it was. He thought it was perhaps a dog man. Although
Mhm.
Gary's junior don't really he's not a big dog man guy, he's more of a Sasquatch guy, but this thing you can't identify.
Mhm.
Most of the sounds that we hear that I've heard, you hear the whoop, you know,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This was definitely something different.
Yeah.
Al
Um,
Berry, I don't know, C Duke, Al Berry. It doesn't that does not I think the first name is John. I apologize, you guys. I'll have to put it in the
mhm.
notes.
Yeah. Just interesting, you know. These, I don't know. There's a lot more to what's out there than people realize or want to believe, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, mine too. And I believe that we know nothing.
Right.
What's the old adage? The more you know, the less you know. I mean, or
That's
whatever.
right. That's right.
That's why.
Absolutely.
That's why it keeps it interesting. And what
Hmm.
I love about it too is the open mindedness. At least the people we hang out with, and the people in our
For sure.
chat, and our people that listen.
Hmm.
Because if you don't have an open mind, if you're just in the ape camp, then you're missing out. Because I think it's much more. And I always say this in closing, Ron Moorhead, 30 years ago, Rob, if you'd have told me there's any sort of paranormal or woo involved with Bigfoot, they're just an ape, I would have told you to go home. But now he's convinced that they're more than just flesh and blood entity.
Hmm. Yeah.
And who's to say they don't even come from another planet? I don't know that I'm open minded, Krista, but I don't know that
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I'm not there yet, only because I haven't encountered anything like that. And like I said, what I witnessed 3 weeks ago was no doubt it was no different than you and I, flesh and blood. You know, I didn't experience anything woo with it. So for me, it's not that I don't believe people's encounters, because I truly do. It's just for me, I more have to see it to believe it. You know what I'm saying? So if I see something, I'm open to it. If one disappears and goes up in a spaceship, I'm totally open to it.
Oh,
But I
I
need
tell
to
you
see
right now,
it.
if somebody sent me an email and says, Rob, there's a story to do on my encounter, I've seen Bigfoot could come out of a spaceship or a spacecraft,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do the story for
Yeah,
sure. I'm not gonna say that something like that wouldn't happen.
right.
We Because who am I to say? Again, I've seen something, so I know all these strange phenomena exist.
Yep, absolutely it does.
So as we're coming up, it's been a great hour and a half. For everybody who was tuning
Yeah.
in, Robin Moonshadow was supposed to be on today, and well, she threw out her back. She'll be back. Thank you so much, No, for that.
Yes, you know.
And she'll be back in another couple of weeks.
Mhm.
So I'm letting her get rest up that back. Thanks to everybody that came in to chat. Before we let everyone go, what you got going on again tonight, Krista? Blinds and
Um,
Booze tonight, 9 o'clock.
yep. Yep. Tonight, Heather Mosier, Small Town
Uh,
Monsters.
Another
And
great
then
storyteller.
tomorrow night, I think we're doing some ghost stories with you, if I remember correctly.
Oh man, again? I'm always on your show.
I know, right? Well, I'm always on yours.
Yeah,
So
well,
once a
yeah,
week
well,
at least.
you're my co-host. Yeah. No,
Right?
that'll be fun. I look forward to that. That'll be cool.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I'll give a couple maybe from my new well no, it's gonna be all original, I think.
Mhm.
We'll talk some creepy stories. It is
Yep.
I love the month of October. This entire month of October for BMR, for this
Mhm.
channel, for brunch, and for Beyond BMR, we're gonna have a lot of creepy
Mhm.
people, but not people that are creepy with creepy tales. Like next week, I think I've got Varla Ventura. She's really cool. She was out a couple months ago. You missed her. I think you were in Texas.
Okay.
So I got off the top of my head, I got the
Well,
list, but I got a lot of great guests lined up for October. So it'll be fun. I do want to thank No 2 times, Barb Hartman, Susie B, the lovely Lily Pump for your awesome super chats. Thanks for everybody who's bought the book. It is appreciated, of course. Thanks to everybody. And Shelly Montgomery. Well, thank you. Thank you, Shelly, for that.
yeah.
Shelly Montgomery just dropped a super chat. I do appreciate that. Anything you guys should do help support us. We do appreciate it, you guys. We love you all. We thank you. Helps keep everything going to an extent.
Yep.
And so yeah. So I guess that's about it. So thanks once again to everybody for coming in.
Mhm.
And even when you have a cancellation, Krista, you see right there, we just kick back. We had a good show. I
Yeah, this was
appreciate
fun.
you. It's
This
always
was fun.
fun. What's more fun is when you have an impromptu show where you're like, oh, the guests can't make it. What are we going to talk
Mhm.
about? And then the hour and a half just went by. It's almost like we've only been talking for like 5 minutes.
Right. Right. Because honestly, we could continue. You
Yeah,
know
we
what I'm
could.
saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I
Well,
mean, we don't run out of things to talk about. So
no,
that was
we
the
never do.
point.
So we do keep it, yeah. So which is awesome. You
Mhm.
can't have a show but not be a talker, or at least
Right.
have things to draw on from past experiences, other people's
Mhm.
experiences. And I do find that the more people you talk to, when you do something like this, if you have an impromptu, pulling up other people's experiences
Mhm.
and just talking about what your beliefs are, because
Yeah,
everybody has beliefs, everyone has theories,
absolutely.
and I love hearing it from everybody.
Me too.
So with that being said, I appreciate everybody coming on in for the super chats and everything else. Krista and I appreciate you. Go
Yep.
check out the Blinds and Booze tonight, and check them out on Friday, because I guess I'll
Mhm.
be making I'll be making an appearance over there.
Yep.
So for Krista and everybody else, we are officially out. Thank you so much.
Good. See ya.